All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you are watching Helix Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program their Line 6 Helix. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I build and program a lot of guitar rigs for a lot of different clients. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Maroon 5, Bush, Kylie Minogue, and more. So if you've been watching this YouTube channel, you have probably been seeing a lot of fractal audio content, programming the FM3, the Axe-Fx 3, and the FM9. So I actually program a lot of different guitar rigs using a lot of different modelers out there, including the Kemper, the Quad Cortex, and in this case, the Line 6 Helix. So I wanted to give back to the community and show some tips and tricks on how to program the Helix. There's a lot of best practices when using modelers live and in the studio. And I just wanted to relay some tips and tricks on how to do that. So this is going to be doing some basic navigation with the Helix HX Edit. That is a mouthful, HX Edit editor. Some basic navigation, some basic editing. And so if you just pulled your Helix out of the box for the first time and you've never used one, the first thing that you're going to want to do is, of course, connect a USB cable to the USB hub and, of course, get HX Edit from the Line 6 website. So when you start up HX Edit, you're going to be presented with these screens right here. And again, if you watch the previous videos, we were doing all the navigation and editing from the front panel on the Helix. This is going to be basically the same thing, but doing it on the editor instead. So right here, we're presented with the factory preset, the US Double Normal. That is basically the Fender Twin. And if you want to edit any of these blocks right here, so what you can do, of course, is click any of the blocks, and then you're going to be presented with a list of parameters that you can adjust. So for example, if we wanted to edit the drive on the block, you can, of course, pull these sliders up and down like so. And these would correspond to the knobs that are right below the LED screen on the Helix itself. You can, of course, also type in any number that you want right here by double-clicking this, and then you can type in whatever. So if we put 2 there, that's a great way to do it. You can, of course, use these little arrows to go up and down. So, of course, we're adjusting the drive. Let's say you want to adjust the bass or the mid or the treble. You can, of course, bring these sliders up and down. And, of course, you can use the arrow keys or type in a number of your choice. So now, the editor is definitely much faster than doing it on the LED panel, in my opinion. And basically because you can also, you don't have to use the joystick, you don't have to use the knobs. You can just, play and then make adjustments without having to, keep taking your hands off the guitar or anything. But for users who, are a little, want to do everything from the computer, I find it's a lot easier. So now if we select any of these effects, we can, of course, pick a different effect that we want. And again, if you watch the previous video, there are definitely different columns that you're going to want to do. So some of the analogous things on the menu on the front panel of the Helix are going to be slightly different in the editor. So for example, let's say we want to go to the amp block and we want to, change the amp to something else. You can, of course, pick any amp you want. Right now we're using the US double verb, but we can definitely, let's say pick the Brit 800 or something like Brit 2204 rather. You can select that and again, make all the adjustments here that you need. And if you're going to be adjusting an effect, for example, you can, of course, pick any of the effects that are in the column right here. But if you want to go to, let's say, a legacy effect or a stereo effect, you're going to want to hit this drop-down menu right here. And so, for example, if we go to the legacy, then it's going to give you a list of, in this case, the compressors that were used on more of the Line 6 legacy products, like, any of the DL4 modelers, any of the M9, M6, M3 units. They still have the effects that were in those in the Helix. So for if you've been using those rigs in the past, they're definitely here and present here. So now, if we want to replace one of these effects with a different type of effect, so in this case, this is the compressor. Let's say, again, we want to replace that with an overdrive. We would go to the distortion block and then, of course, pick whatever distortion we want. And again, be wary, or not wary, but be aware of this drop-down menu right here. We also have other effects that we can choose from, even though it defaults to mono. So for example, if you are a fan of any of their legacy overdrives from their previous legacy units, you can, of course, pick one of these overdrives here, or you can go to mono, and it's going to give you a list of different effects here, and then stereo. Some of these can be stereo. In this case, since it's an overdrive, it's probably not necessary. So right here, instead of using the red squeeze compressor, I want to replace the distortion with, let's say, a tube screamer style effect. All we do is click it, it replaces the compressor, and again, we can make any adjustments that we want here. Now, if you want to assign this to a foot switch, by default, some of these foot switches have already been assigned, but you want to go to this bypass controller assign here, and then this allows you to pick whatever foot switch you want to place it in. So right now, by default, it was in foot switch number 8. We can, of course, select any of these other blank foot switches if you would like your effect in a different position on your unit. And then here in the brackets, it will tell you that, hey, we already have an effect assigned to this foot switch. So it's just giving you a heads up that in case you want to either replace or remove these, you're not going to replace or remove any of the effects you've already assigned to a foot switch. But again, this is a factory preset, so these are already pre-assigned. But again, it makes it really intuitive. You can definitely, assign any of your effects to different foot switches. We'll cover some of this other stuff in the future, but this is just, again, a basic video of just editing an effect, editing a foot switch, anything like that. So one of the other things that you can do, of course, is I'm going to go back to the edit screen. Let's hypothetically say that you want to delete one of these blocks. You can, of course, click the block. There's a little X right there. And what this will do is, of course, delete the block. I'll just bring this preset back up again as its default. And this little power icon is, of course, going to engage or bypass the effect. If you want to engage or bypass the effect quickly, you can also hit the spacebar. So you can see I'm hitting spacebar to turn these effects on and off, but the power icon is there to engage or disengage the effect within the preset that you're on. So, of course, you can see that right now it's kind of grayed out. You can still, of course, edit any of the effects, but you're not going to hear it in the preset if you're playing along. So you, of course, want to engage the effect, make any adjustments so you can actually hear what it's doing, and then, of course, you can bypass it unless you want it on in the preset. So in one of the other videos I just did, we also talked about snapshots. So let's talk about editing snapshots. So in this icon, or in this menu right here, we have all the 8 snapshots that you can have per preset. So if you're not familiar with snapshots, snapshots are a way to engage or disengage multiple effects at the same time. So for example, let's say in this preset right now, we have basically only the reverb on, the amp, and the cab. You can kind of tell here that the delay here and in the modulation effect, which in this case is a tremolo, is bypassed because the effect is kind of grayed out. And this compressor is also grayed out. So if we wanted to, for example, engage all 3 of these effects, the tremolo, the delay, and the compressor with one button switch, we can assign a snapshot to it. So snapshot 1 has all these effects bypassed. We can go to snapshot 2, engage the effects we want. So these 3 effects are on now. And if we go between snapshot 1 and 2, you can see that snapshot 1, these are bypassed. I'll put the cursor down here so it's easier to see. And then if we go to snapshot 2, these 3 effects turn on. So you can, of course, use the shortcut key. I'm using a Mac right now, so the command key while hitting 1 will go to snapshot 1. The command key hitting 2 will go to snapshot 2. So I'll just do that really quick. Here's snapshot 2, here's snapshot 1, and you can see that the effects are turning on and off. So if you're familiar with the Fractal product, snapshots can be analogous to scenes. So this would be scene 1, scene 2, etc. And again, this is a great way to turn on multiple effects on and off, as well as making adjustments within the effect between snapshots. Now, we're not going to cover making those adjustments yet. We're just going to, cover basically, turning effects on and off. So it definitely saves a lot of tap dancing and foot switch pressing if you use snapshots to turn on multiple effects. So really useful feature right there. Again, turning 3 effects on, turning them all off, etc. So Last but not least, if you do want to place an effect, so for example, if we did have these effects on here, you can see that this grid is empty and we have room to add some effects here. What you can do is click an empty block or empty block in the grid right here. It's going to say empty block, and of course you can pick an effect of your choice. And so let's say we wanted to add a distortion effect. We can click here, and again, you have the drop-down menu in here. Don't forget about that. And you can, of course, pick any of these effects that you want to do there. So let's say we want to put maybe the top secret OD. So now the effect is placed. We can make any edits you want right there. And of course, you can still bypass or engage the effect so you can hear what is going to happen within the tone that you're building. And of course, you may want to adjust the amp block and everything like that. So that's going to be just kind of a basic run through of the HX editor for the Helix. And I find this is really useful to navigate and build presets. If you want to check out some of the other quote unquote some of the other factory presets, you can of course double click on each preset. And you can see here, as I double click through each preset, we are going through each of the presets and how they're built. And again, you'll see that each grouping of 4 presets is one bank. So we have bank 1, A, B, C, and D, bank 2, A, B, C, and D, and so forth. So each bank of presets is a grouping of 4. So we can navigate that on the unit itself. So you can, store all your favorite presets right next to each other so you don't have to bank through everything. But again, we'll cover that in the future. Last but not least, before I forget, if we are going to be editing, for example, delays, and we have the time and subdivision right here, one thing that you do definitely want to be aware of is that a lot of the delays are going to be synced up to the tap tempo, and you can type the tap tempo, or you can type the tempo of the Helix up here. So in this case, let's say, this is going to be global. We can just tap it in right here, those kinds of things. And again, this is going to be 1/16th note based on this tempo. So if you want a fixed delay time, you can see that if we use these the sliders right here and the up and down arrows, you notice that it's just going through every subdivision. So we have basically dotted quarter notes, a quarter note, and you may be interested, instead of using a subdivision based on the tap tempo, you want a fixed delay time. So you want to click this icon right here, this little clock icon, and it's going to toggle between going between a subdivision and going between a fixed time, in this case milliseconds. So right here, if you like your delays at 375 milliseconds, so you can just definitely adjust the time there using the slider. You can of course type in the time. So let's say we want 500 milliseconds. You can do something like that instead of using the subdivision. So that's going to be definitely one thing to keep in mind if you are adjusting any time-based effects. This clock icon right here and these sliders are really useful to go between subdivisions based on the tap tempo and a fixed time like this. So that's a basic run through of the HX editor. We'll definitely be getting into more advanced stuff in the future, but this is definitely geared for those who've just gotten their Helix. So if you need any one-on-one help, I would love to help you out. Feel free to contact me directly and we can, book some time, a one-on-one session. Other than that, everybody, take care. Talk to you soon.
I'm falling with you. I'm standing with you, 'cause